we started the call. I know you're in Colorado. You work with Zach, but where'd you come from? How'd you find us?
Yeah, so I was working a corporate rental job before this. And I just started looking on, I think it was LinkedIn, for different like high level sales jobs. And I was just trying to find something. I knew I didn't want to stay in like management, and I didn't really like the corporate stuff because I'm like in a brand new suit and I'm scrubbing vehicles all day. It was just kind of like a weird setup to me.
I know
And
where you were.
yeah, and like the pay is not very good. Considering you like have to have a degree and they go after ex athletes and all this other stuff, right? And so I was like, well, I'm obviously not very good at managing like certain kinds of people, and that would be like the lazy kind. So I used to butt heads a lot with the guy that was above me and underneath me that I was helping. And so I was like, whatever, I'm just going to get some kind of a sales job where I'll be in charge of myself. I can make as much money as I want. No one's going to bother me, and I'll just be good. Right. And so I kind of found FFL in January of 2018. And I was just started watching all these different videos that Sean did and the producer testimonials and all this stuff. And everyone was kept talking about 10K week and 400 grand a year. And I was like, well, obviously that stuff's not true, but even if it's like half true or like a quarter true, like I'll still be making 100 grand if I do 25% of what they're doing. So I was like, I'm sure it's going to work eventually. And then I got a promotion. So I stayed at my other job. And then finally it just kind of imploded. And April of 2019, I actually got licensed and started dialing April 1st. So just barely over 2 years ago, exactly.
Okay. So you said a couple of things that I think that people might have missed or might have glossed over. So first of all, the place that he came from, we don't talk about names, but I think you all know what that industry is. So obviously it's a great place to recruit. And he just gave you all of the talking points that you need to recruit from that industry. So if you're looking to build, and we'll get into that later, definitely tap into that industry for all the reasons that he just said, and play it back if you missed it. That competitive edge, you said they go after former athletes. So obviously you were a former athlete. I recently learned, and also come from a very accomplished and competitive family. How did that translate, or how did you translate that mindset and those things to what you're doing now, and how has it helped?
Yeah, I think that was it's been like pivotal to my, kind of journey through FFL, right? Coming from any kind of competitive background, and that can literally be in anything. Like you can be a musician that has to do stuff like that for like high school or in college, or there's tons of different competitive industries that you can like kind of utilize and just transition that skill set here. And that's just the overcoming, getting your butt kicked and getting better, right? So I competed at a medium level at an NAIA school, dude. So it wasn't like this big thing or whatever. But I still always wanted to be competitive. And so transitioning over to here, it was like being able to find a new sport that you actually got paid for, right? Because now all of a sudden, when you get good at it, you guys are talking about 400 grand in a year. I was like, well, this is great, right? And I knew I was going to be bad at first, certainly not as bad as I was. I didn't know it was going to be that horrible. But I knew that it was going to be a matter of repetitions and getting better, because it's not like I've ever in my whole life where I started something and then I was really good at it right away, right? It takes like reps and years and months, or whatever the situation is. But assuming that you're going to start something and overnight be some like unbelievable, whether it's an athlete or this job, like I knew right away that I was going to struggle. Because it was brand new to me and I'd never started something and just been good at it inherently. So I kind of just carried that with me and was like, well, if I just put my head down and work a lot, there's no way it's not going to work itself out mathematically, at least according to what everybody's saying on the trainings. And so I just kind of used that, past experience, being told no and other stuff, and, whatever it is, getting cut from teams. I just kind of applied that to here, where I was like, okay, well, I'm really bad and I just need to get more reps under my belt to get better. Because it's literally that simple. It's just a couple of word tracks that you need to learn as a new agent, so I kind of just used all of my background type stuff. And, I do kind of come from where I've had some family members compete at like Olympic trial level and be world ranked athletes and stuff, and I was never anywhere close to that stuff. They kind of hoarded all those high level genes, but I got the medium ones. So I kind of just used all that stuff and applied it to here. And it's literally just a work factor. And you hear Sean say nonstop, all you have to do is go to work. You just have to go to work and anybody can do it. And I'm like, so now I don't have to be smart. I don't have to be tall, fast, strong. I don't have to do any of that stuff. All I have to do is show up and work, and I'm going to by default make money eventually, And so I took that very literally, and I just applied my entire self to this whole job from day one.
Got it. So aside from the reps, obviously, and your work ethic, what are some of the things? First of all, you just glossed over how bad it was. Talk to us about specifically what was bad. Was it terrible on the phones, getting hung up on, terrible in the house? And then what were some of the things specifically, aside from just repetition and consistency, that were key in helping you kind of turn the page?
Man, so I would say 2 to 3 like really, really major things. So step one, so I'm a really fast talker. It's just, I've always been like that. My brain can fit like a very small amount of info in it at once, and I forget stuff really easy. So I really do have to read over stuff a few times or listen to a training 20 times before it'll like actually sink in. So in order to give myself a little bit more time and not rush through my appointments, I got on the phone with Mark Mead, and he changed my whole schedule, because I was booking 10 to 12 appointments in a day, and I would schedule them between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., but I would have 12 scheduled. So all of a sudden I start running behind, and I start glossing through my appointments, right? Where I'm just rushing through, putting prices. They say no, of course, because I have no idea why I'm even in there. And then I go to my next one that I'm behind for. So I rush through that one to try to get to my next one on time that's not even home. And so I did this thing for 10 weeks where I was just running a horrible schedule. I had no idea what I was doing. I was rushing in all the houses, not asking any good questions, not picking up any checks. I would be like 1, 2, or 3 checks that I would pick up out of 44 appointments every week for 10 weeks, so I'm just getting hit in the face every single day, and I'm not making any adjustments, so I figured out with my conversation with Mark, it turns out that I just need a little more time in my appointments. So now it's every hour, 15, hour and a half, I'll book an appointment. So now I can have an 8, 9:15, 10:30, 11:45, and I can do that throughout the day. And I can still schedule 9 to 11 appointments in a day and just finish up by 8:30 or 9:30 at night. So having that little bit of a timepiece and causing me not to rush or be overwhelmingly worried about being late for stuff, because I hate being late for things, so that was like a big adjustment with this job. Is like, hey, it's okay to be late. You already told them you're going to be late. So that was a big one, my schedule. And then the other massive game changer for me that goes along with the scheduling stuff is I started setting a 10-minute timer in every appointment I went to. And I would not let myself go through any of the suitability stuff with the client until they spent 10 minutes talking to me about why they filled it out, who it was for, and what's going to happen without it. And I would just get the shovel out and start going at every angle I could. Is the daughter married? Does she have kids? Does she have a family? What's she do for work? How far away does she live from here? Does she have her own bills? Does she have 30 grand overnight she could come up with for your final expenses? Talk to me about that. And you just let them tell you everything, right? So now all of a sudden I have a clip full of ammo, and I can start proceeding through the appointment because I'm holding all the chips, right? So, now we're going to get to a point where the only possible answer that they could give me at the end of the appointment is yes, because of how I set it up in the beginning. So those are two big things that I fixed.
So you went straight to the top. Who told you to suggested that you reach out to Mark, or is that something that you just did independently? Because I know a lot of people are afraid to reach out, period, let alone to somebody who's Mark Mead, even though he's just a normal person, but you found.
Well, yeah. And you want to talk about intimidating, right? So I had been listening to Mark's, all your guys' like team training, right? The tri-state stuff for, almost over 2 months by now, so I had heard all these stories of Mark's background and, coming from being in debt to coming here and fixing it kind of stuff. And then I heard a training where he was talking about, he was cycling out of the field and he did 465 that year. And I'm like, I can't pick up more than $1,500 in a week. And this guy's talking about, he gets out of the field and does 465. And so I talked to Zach, and Zach was like, honestly, I'm kind of at a dead end on what I can do with you because you're literally terrible and you're still working a lot. You're just awful. So I need to find somebody else that can help you with something, because I don't know what you're missing. And so, because Zach can teach me how to close every appointment, but if I rush through them, it doesn't matter. So he pointed me to Mark, and he's the one that got me in touch with Mark about having a quick 30-minute phone call. And then I just got absolutely shredded for about 30 minutes when I was explaining to Mark how I was running.
Yeah. Okay. Now and that's, I mean, that's admirable because it takes a lot to just sit there and take it and not say, well, but, or I did that, because a lot of times you get on the phone with somebody just started and they're like, yeah, that's what I said. Or I did that. I did that too. But there's no way you did that or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
I got pretty good prep up front for, hey, anytime you're calling to ask somebody for help, maybe don't tell them all the great things that you're doing. Just ask them what you can actually fix,
yeah,
so that was some advice that I was blessed to get before I got on the phone with them.
100%. So this 10-minute timer you said, where did that come from? And what are some of and you talked about the family and their makeup. What are some of the other questions that you use to kind of dig into that why to continue to pick at the scab, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it?
Yeah, great, dude. So I listened to Zach and Grayson had done a training at that point in time, and they talked about, Grayson said, like, hey, honestly, if everybody would just spend 10 minutes like understanding the client situation before they move on, everybody would sell a lot more
That's
insurance.
right.
Remember that? So yeah, so I
Yes.
was like, okay, well, I just assumed he meant that literally. So that's where I just started setting a timer in the house and waiting for it to go off before I would move on. And certainly that first time when it was 3.5 minutes in and I ran out of questions and my timer was still going, I was just kind of like sitting there pretty awkwardly trying to like, all right. So also another question that's good, I guess, would be, and I'm trying to like panic think of something to ask them. And then it just comes down to like, hey, how would you have this conversation with your parents? Because I was running all Facebook final expense, like, hey, if this was my family, what kind of stuff would I need to know? Like, okay, let's go through like retirement income, loss of income, social security, survivorship. Let's calculate, what your house or rent is. We dig through a little bit of I'd call it a soft budget, because I don't want to get in there and then they realize that they spend 1,100 a month on bills and their income's 1,000. And then I put myself in a situation where I can't help them because they think their income's upside down. Right. So I do like a soft budget. Hey, any other major debts or bills you guys are knocking out besides your rent payment? Like, do you have cars and other big stuff?
I was wondering how you did that.
Yep. So it's just kind of a loose, hey, outside of your guys' rent or the house, any other major debts or bills that you guys are getting squared away now? And then you can kind of go from there. Okay, got it. Is it more or less than your rent payment or your house payment or whatever the situation is? And that'll at least give me an idea of their two biggest primary bills. And then I'll get, obviously a ballpark monthly income. And then I can navigate myself through, okay, they have this much left. Probably don't need to show them more than 10% of total income anyway. And then I can start making plans that are affordable, whether it's $40 or $300, dude. I didn't care. It had to fit year round no matter what. And I
Year
guess,
round. I like that.
yeah, yep. And that's what I still say that in every house, like, hey, which one, do you think is going to leave enough for X person or your spouse or your daughter, or whoever it is, that can fit you guys, that you think is enough insurance for them that's still going to fit you guys year round? Do you have a preference, or what do you think is a good start, or which one do you guys want to do? There's a couple of different ways that you can word that part. But again, it's always which one are we going to do type stuff, because I know if I go through their budget like that and even just have like a ballpark, I'll build in a smaller number so I know that it fits, and I'll always include that on the first three that I show them.
Got it. Do you always show three?
I do. Yeah, I guess I just was trained as a 3-number person. So I've always kind of showed 3 different options, whether that's 3 different amounts for like funeral stuff, depending on if they want to leave something behind, or it's income replacement included, or different percentages of the home if they're older. I have 3 different things I put down every time.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The consistency. I kind of always shied away from the budget because I didn't want to get into that itemizing thing. But that soft budget and clearing out the larger things and just assuming that the other things are intangible and not really a priority is huge. I'm definitely going to start doing that. Now, Easton, just and like I said, I've followed you and I know Zach pretty well, so he kind of kept me abreast of you as you were coming on. What's your biggest month so far at FFL individually?
I think it's like 105 grand and some pennies.
All simplified issue?
Yep. All life. Yep.
Okay. Now I heard your schedule for the first time in Ohio. And it makes sense now that you can write 100 grand. because of the way that you kind of pack things in on the weekend, which I think a lot of other people kind of shy away from weekends. Can you talk to us a little bit about your schedule, how you set up for your schedule on a week-to-week basis, and also how you prepare for that lead-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest schedule tip that I kind of picked up, and I don't even know if I'd say it's like a trick, but you can turn every single month into a 5-week month if you're willing to run 1 or 2 power weekends in a month. So, right, like everyone's like, oh, we got a 5-week month this month, so it's going to be a big production month. Like if you actually run a power weekend once or twice in a month, you can still get 5 weeks of production in a 4-week. And by that, I mean, you start running a power weekend where you schedule out Friday, Saturday, Sunday with 30 appointments, and you book another 22 for Tuesday and Wednesday, because you can fit 11 appointments in your schedule if you book from 8 to 8:30. So I build in 2 gaps over the weekend because we have the TNL call on Friday and a call with Sean Saturday. So I don't run appointments during those. But I can still run like 31 appointments on a weekend, 32 probably, and then 22. So now I have 54 appointments in a week span, right? So if I have 54 appointments and you're like, hey, I'm really busy with 25 or 30, dude, I'm going to double your production literally by doing reps more than you are in a week. And now if you do that twice a month, now you have a 6-week month, and a 4-week span of time. So you can get so much farther ahead than other people if you're willing to do the extra reps. And like you said, of course, that's going to require some extra leads. But the return is always so great on the leads. Why not double down a couple of weekends on the month, pick up that extra 10, 12, 15 grand, 8 grand, whatever your situation is. It's what's going to boost these huge production months. And then you can have, like, February was my biggest month we've ever had. And it's a short month and we had conference, and I still produced more because of how I adjusted my run schedule. Right. So, and it's those power weekends and being willing to do these travel trips and go to other areas where there's more leads. It's kind of a non-negotiable if you want to produce at a high level. And I just picked up like little tidbits from all of you guys that have been doing this a long time. And then I just kind of, added a few things or whatever that I got, I guess. I don't even know where I heard the power weekend thing, but I stole that from somebody and just kind of put it in place.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane. Like you literally do more in a weekend than most people do in an entire week, and swear that they're busy and they're working. It's insane. So switching gears now, I know that you're building now, but when did you start hiring?
That's funny. So I started hiring I shouldn't say like started hiring. I tried to start hiring when I was like 90 days in. So I had, those first 10 weeks, I was basically almost homeless, right? I turned the corner. I did 15 grand in a week for the first time, paid off all my credit cards and started ordering leads. And as soon as I got paid, I opened up an ad, right? I opened up one ad on Indeed, and I was just trying to figure out, I was like learning how to interview people. And it was almost like I was trying to talk them into coming here instead of posturing the company and using the resources that are here to like, yeah. Hey, listen, I literally don't care if you work here or not, but watch this video. And if you're not happy with your situation, you can fix it here. So, and I didn't know how to do that at first when I was hiring. So I started to try to do it by myself, first of all. And then second step / mistake was I tried to split a recruiter with Zach, and we both realized that that's probably not a good idea. So now we're splitting a recruiter and we're figuring out like
somebody always feels like they're shorted.
Well, yeah, who gets to get which person, and we're all hiring in the same states. So now it's, it's just it's a train wreck. So first thing that I would do is definitely not split a recruiter. Just find an entry level person to do, whether it's admin and recruiting stuff at first. Like, it's not like you're going to go out of the gate and buy an $8,000 a month staff, right? You just need some kind of help, whether that's screening entry level interviews and then you do the follow-ups, just small stuff like that you can have them do, and then do a little admin work at the same time. But if you have one ad open and then a part-time entry-level staff that's helping you can at least get some kind of people they're screened through an initial interview, which was Rachel at the time. She's the one that I have full-time now to myself. But it was just like, hey, this is commission, right? It's life insurance sales. Oh, I don't want commission. Okay, cool. Now I don't have to talk to them because she already kicked them out of the side because they don't want a commission job. Right. So she's getting through all those people. And then I'm only talking to the people that want commission or have been in life insurance before. And so that's again, my hiring stuff, I probably didn't really start doing it until like a year ago,
consistently?
maybe a year and a half of the 2 years. I was like actually got some like staff and opened up a bunch of ads, and I didn't start taking control of my own group and my own agency till probably like 4 or 5 months ago, where I was trying to hire out people to build a multi-million-dollar business for me and not taking any responsibility myself. Massive
Right.
adjustment that I wish I could go back and do. And the biggest reason I had to change that is because Jake had no staff and he was recruiting more people a week than I was. So he's getting more licensed people because he's doing all of it himself. He just was cold calling people, running his own ads, doing his own interviews. And I was like, this guy is outgrowing me and he doesn't have any staff, which was like a huge wake up call that I had this massive gap miss in my agency where I took no responsibility for building it and was trying to like put it on staff. Right. And that's man, if I could not do that a year and a half ago, I'd be in a way different spot today.
Yeah. So a lot of people are starting out, just starting to hire and starting to build a team. What do you mean by taking control of the agency and not putting it on staff? What were you doing before with your staff that you had to adjust and start operating the way that you do now?
Yeah, I think it was just this mentality that I was so unbelievably busy that I couldn't do any of that stuff, which is not true. You have gaps where you're going to be driving in between appointments. You can do it on Sundays. You can gap your schedule out in the morning on like a Wednesday morning. If you have a great production weekend and then you have to run on Tuesday, then you can take all Wednesday to do it. If you're in that entry spot where you're like, I'm just trying to get paid, but I do want to build a business, you've got to take a little bit of control. And I think the biggest thing was I would want them to hire them, contract them, make sure that they were ready to get up and running, talk to them about the lead stuff. And then I was like, hey, when they're ready to buy leads, I'll get on the phone with them and then we'll be ready to run tomorrow. So I wasn't talking to anybody. And there's this 3 to 6 to 8 week process for some of these guys, where they get contracted and they're like waiting for carriers and they don't know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, you girls need to be telling them what to do. And I wasn't talking to any agents, so that's such a massive miss on my part, where we could have been growing a lot faster if I would have been willing to step into an actual leadership role and like help the people that were asking for my help. Because that's what our job is. It's the staff's job is not to hire people, get them leads, get them up and running, answer product questions. What a weird thing to ask them to do. Their staff, their support. That's not their job. So it was less of a one unit and a team and more of like, hey, I hope the girls can grow me $1 million agency while I run like crazy, which is that's not how it works. So
Right.
that was a big miss. And the warm market social media stuff, dude, is a game changer. You cannot hear it possibly enough. And I didn't share that stuff because everybody's really judgy, right? Everyone's like to be all judgy and think and say what they have to say or whatever. It's like, hey, I'm just sharing the opportunity because it's literally changed my life in 12 months. I'm not saying that you guys have to do it, but if I don't put it out there, I don't find Jake Conan. Jake Conan's a VP. He wrote 107 grand last month. And he was my warm market I went to college with. And I wasn't sharing the stuff. I literally found him because he reached out to me because he saw somebody tag me in a post, not even something that I shared myself.
Yeah.
So now if they don't do that and Jake doesn't see my numbers, I lose a guy that produces 100 grand. It's literally changed his life. He's building a massive agency, right, in a short span of time. So I don't have that guy on my team because I wasn't sharing anything. And what if I'd have found Jake 6 to 12 months before that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. I think the other thing that people miss when you say things like, I was tagged in it and it wasn't even something that I was sharing. Like, it all starts with your personal production, and your accountability and having the capital to employ people, to help you build this business, because there are people out there that are willing to help. And then having that personal production there, so that when I do post something, I want to tag Easton, or I'm looking for Easton's post to share and tag him, because it brings the company to light as opposed to me. Because I'm sure people look at your posts and they know you from high school or college, the standout athlete with this amazing work ethic, and say, of course, Easton can do it. But if I share everybody else's stuff, then it's okay. I know Easton can do it, but who are all these other random people that are having this success too? and then it creates this snowball effect. Or people are nosy by nature, so naturally they ask questions when they see things like that. But that's good stuff, man. I'm gonna, if you have time, just open it up to some questions here in a second. But before I do that, and you've given us a lot, and I appreciate it. What's one thing that you would tell yourself if you had to go back and do it all over again, or that you make sure that you tell your agents so that they don't duplicate this one thing that you did to help them kind of get over that hurdle or get up and running or shorten their learning curve?
So I think the first thing that I would remind myself when I was brand new starting is like, hey, remember that time that you're trying to make 500 grand in a year? Like, why are you pretending like this is going to be some simple thing where you're just going to do 20 grand every week and you're new? You know, like you're talking about, I was making 59 grand gross income a year, and now I want to make 500. And I'm like a little confused on why it's so much harder, you know? And I did know that it was going to be hard. Again, I didn't know it was going to be like this. So I would just be like, dude, you need to buckle up and grow up and stop being so emotional, because you can definitely do it if you're working hard enough. But make sure that you're actually intentional about your training. So that literally segues me into the other thing I would tell myself is, hey, if you're going to reach out to people and get help and listen to trainings, maybe you should try like writing it down and studying it and applying it instead of just letting it go through your brain and immediately forgetting everything. So have a notebook with you. If you're on the road, I carried a run notebook with me. So when I would have a miss in an appointment,
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
write all that stuff down. All right, so the client said this was this age, this health, this income. This is how I set it up. This is what they said. I absolutely panicked and got kicked out. So now what do I do? So then I would call and get help. And for the longest time, I wasn't writing anything down and studying it and trying to change or implement. I was just like, oh my gosh, that makes great sense, Wayne. Thank you so much for the help. I immediately do the same thing in the next house, right? I really wish that I wouldn't have done that for so long, because that was a big mistake. And then you even feel worse on the back end because these high level guys are taking time to help you, and you're not even trying to do any of the stuff they're telling you. You just say, oh my gosh, that's perfect. I wish I would have done that. Immediately forget and screw it up again. You know, so take a little bit of notes and study your mistakes so that you can actually focus on one or two things the next time you go out to fix. It's not this where you remember all 500 things you need to say. Find one or two key points and just apply them. And then when you've got mastered those, pick up another key points and apply them. It's not going to be an overnight where you remember how to perfectly structure and close every house. That takes time. So I guess that's what I would tell myself.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. Those are important. I've heard a lot about that notebook. I don't know why I didn't include it in the call earlier, but that is a great habit for new agents to develop, and the things that it changes or it impacts is kind of invaluable. When you really sit back and think about it, because you'll never remember, especially at the end of the day, you won't remember that 10 o'clock appointment and what happened there, but you'll know you didn't close it and there was something that you were missing, but won't be able to convey it accurately because you didn't take the time to jot it down or even record it. I mean, today's day and age, you can record anything on your phone and just label it and shoot it over to whomever to dissect when you sit down and figure out how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. So that's good stuff. Does anybody have any questions for Easton while we have him for a few more minutes, and then we'll let him get back to his day, because obviously those appointments don't book themselves.
I got a question for you, Easton. Thanks for all your knowledge too, man. I've learned a lot so far, a lot.
You got it, Craig. What's up, dude?
So the question I've got, I'm a little confused on how to really properly plan a travel trip and have the leads ready for you when you get there. Is that a 3-week out process, a 4-week out process? I'm really struggling with trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So when you're first doing your initial, couple of travel trips, so I like to travel with a lead mix, right? So I'll have like 1 or 2 counties locked out direct mail wise, and I'll make sure that those counties have life supplements in them or second chance CRM. Because then when you travel, it's the final expense thing is something that, we kind of had to get good at, because that's like all that we had when I was new. So you had to order them 4 or 5 days in advance. And if you ever forgot, your lead flow was down on dial day, because we didn't have the surplus of leads in the CRM like we do now, so having access to just be able to buy 100 leads when you hit the ground and you land somewhere is wild. You don't really have to be that pre-planned, but when you're traveling, You never ever want to try to travel like your actual driver flight time, that 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's like the best time to travel. If you're going to miss dial time, you've got to do it then. Taking a flight from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and like having this huge layover or whatever the situation is doesn't make any sense. And if it's ever more than 5 hours, I'll fly. Because again, that's my 11 to 4 drive time. I'm still going to be able to dial from 7:30 to 10:55 and from 4:15 to 9:30 or 9 p.m. or whatever, whenever people start telling you maybe it's getting a little bit late. But I want to have enough leads to book 30 appointments if it's a 3-day trip. So if I have a lead mix, if I have 20 direct mail, I should be able to set 12 to 15. Then I want to get 100 life leads, maybe 150, depending on if it's the instance or the 1 to 3 month. So you want to have a good chunk of those as filler appointments. You can certainly look at second chance mortgage that's in the CRM too. I like to go to areas that have a bunch of those in there. So then you have some new mortgage, some old mortgage, 100 to 200 life leads, again, depending on the age of them. It's going to be impossible for you not to run 26 to 30 appointments. And then you take that really late Sunday night flight or like a Monday morning, the first one that goes out, and then you get back in the office and finish dialing for Tuesday, Wednesday.
Man, that's awesome. That is exactly what I was looking for, man. That's perfect. I appreciate it. I'm copying that right now.
You got it, dude.
All right, what else you guys got? Anybody else have any questions for Easton? But he can help with actually Ivan has written 100 grand, but go ahead, Jose.
I'm sorry. Are you still doing like 3 trips a month?
Yeah, I'll do 3 to 5. It just kind of depends on lead flow and what other stuff. Like we're kind of getting into a little bit of conference season. So lots of traveling for conferences. So I got to adjust for that. I probably never want to travel less than 3 weeks in a month. I've got stuff generating in a certain way so that I can travel pretty consistently, because there's just in Colorado, we just don't have anything in the CRM hardly. And then the Facebook stuff's, slowed down a little bit. I like to travel and run anyway. You're way more focused. There's more leads in other places. So I just want to go where it's easy, right? Nobody likes to be on the phone for 12 hours. So why don't you just go somewhere where you can buy 200 of them and then go knock it out and be done by whatever, 5 or 6 p.m., So I don't know if that answers your entire question.
It does,
but
because Craig asked the other part that I wanted to know.
All right, what else you guys got? We'll let Easton get back to his day.
So Easton, for those travel trips, are you like booking your flights, for 3 weeks, boom, 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 you're booking them, let's say at the beginning of the month, you book 3 flights. So you already schedule mentally, you're already setting yourself up mentally for the trips and setting your lead flow for that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will probably wait until I think I have enough leads to plan it. So if I have got 25 in, let's say 25, I try to have like 20 to 30 direct mail in wherever I'm traveling. Because again, I'm going to have less phone time because that 11 to 4 gap, I'm going to be driving or flying, so the direct mail, it's just less time on the phone. I mean, it is what it is. So I want to have 20 to 30 of those ready. And as soon as I have 20 or 30, then I can actually plan the trip out. But I want to have some kind of minimum of those that hit my CRM before I start booking. Now, there's tons of guys that travel for these life leads. People in Andrew's group are probably honestly the best at it. So I would do as much digging with those guys that are traveling to run the instance and the new, and figure out exactly how they're scheduling and how many they're getting on their trip. Because I've never taken a travel trip and only ran one lead source. I'll always have a mix wherever I go. So sometimes I'll just get up and go. Like a 48-hour notice to myself, like, hey, if I get like 10 to 15 dumped on and I already had 10 or 15, like, okay, we're going on Thursday, we're going to go tomorrow. So Wednesday night, I'll book my flight, schedule my hotel, grab my rental car, and then we're off. I make sure that I have that, again, that 11 to 4 window booked for all my traveling stuff, but I'll be very adaptable in my travel schedule if I need to be.
Thank you, man.
You got it.
Anybody else? One more question, and we'll get him out of here inside of 45 minutes. All right. Easton, I know I asked you what you would have told your normal self, but it's kind of traditional that we ask for any parting shots, any words of wisdom. I'm going to kind of guide you on this one because I want to go into your agents as well. I want people to understand like how important that notebook is and how it impacted and shortened your learning curve. So kind of talk to us a little bit about the quality of conversations that you were able to have with the managers or the people that you employed to help you with your in-home and overcome or eliminate some of those objections with the notebook, and what it was like before you started keeping the notebook to facilitate those conversations.
Got it. And I hope you guys can hear me okay. Wayne, you're a little spotty, so I'm going to try to hopefully answer the majority of what I think you're asking about. So if, as far as talking about the importance of the notebook and helping it adjust my in-home stuff, so you still want to listen to every single training that comes out about different in-home scenarios, in-home closes. I'll go through stuff that Matt Smith put out 6-7 years ago because it's still applicable and it's still really good. So I want to hear how Matt would have done it, how Wayne would have done it, how Steve would have done it.
Was that
You know,
me?
I
Am I
wanna
frozen
get-
or is Easton frozen?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I never want to put myself in a position where I think I'm at a certain level and I can't learn anything else. And I think that a big chunk of that came from Giordano, right? So Steve gets on every next level call and listens to training every single day. And the dude wrote 1.3 million. You think he needs to get on training to learn how to sell stuff? No, but he can pick up little tiny things that someone that does 20 or 25 grand may say something or posture themselves in a certain way that he never even thought of before. That's why I like to listen to all the different trainings, because I could hear something from somebody who's 2 months in. Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember. Zach had hired this guy and he had been here like 30 days. Brittany Jarrett's a great example, right? So I called and asked Brittany Jarrett how she was closing so much business. I'd already been here a year and she had been here like 3 months and she just was like already closing really high. And so I just called her and she was like, yeah, when I'm in the appointment, once they give me their health, I literally just tell them that I'm going to enter their information in the Eagle app and it's going to tell me how much that they're allowed to get and then tell them what the price is. And then she just shows it to them and says, are you good with this? Right. And I'm like, how simple is that? She literally just enters the stuff in, hits calculate and is like, hey, do you want to do 30,000? Well, that's a little expensive. Okay. What about 25,000? How's that? Okay, cool. We'll do 25,000. And then it's over. You know, it's so simple. It's not this big drawn out, all these different things you have to say. It's just direct to the point. Hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to enter your stuff and it'll tell us how much you can get. And then we'll send it in, make sure you get approved. Do you want to do the 25 grand or the 30? And she just shows them and then she closes them and picks up the check. So that's a great example of you can never hear enough training because she was brand new and she taught me how to do that, you know, from a simple final expense close like that. So I like that kind of stuff. That notebook thing, when you're reaching out to, you know, different top producers or your manager, you can be so unbelievably thorough on where your mistake is and they can always find it. Like, okay, did you even ask where their kids live or if they have grandkids or if they're married or what their job is? No, I didn't ask any of that stuff. Okay, got it. So on the next house you go into, when you run into this situation, I need you to ask these 5 questions so that she can understand that her daughter can't come up with 15 to 30 grand because she makes 36 grand a year. So how would she possibly be able to do that? You know? And so it allowed me to get very specific questions for different scenarios. And then I can position myself in every house where I don't want to say like back them into a corner or anything. But they literally can't say anything else besides yes if they spend 15 minutes explaining to you what's going to happen without it, right? As long as you don't make it too expensive. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully that was helpful.